She never thought 3 words could destroy everything before it even began. When Charlotte Hale walked into that auto shop to restore her late mother's vintage car, she had no idea the mechanic overhearing her racist remark would become the man she couldn't stop thinking about. Marcus Reed had every reason to hate her, but instead, he showed her grace she didn't deserve and a love her family would never accept. Forced to choose between her father's approval and the truth beating in her own heart, Charlotte made a decision that would either cost her everything or finally set her free. But some choices can't be undone. Some words can't be taken back. And some love stories are built on foundations so fragile, one wrong move could shatter it all. What happened when Charlotte sent that text asking Marcus to stay hidden? You won't believe where this story goes. If you're watching this, hit subscribe and comment below where you're watching from. I want to know if you would have made the same choice Charlotte did. The teal convertible sat in the middle of the shop bay like a ghost from another time. Charlotte Hale stood beside it, her designer sunglasses pushed up on her head, trying not to think about how her mother's hands had last touched the steering wheel. The leather seats smelled like old perfume and summer drives that would never happen again. "It's beautiful," Tessa said beside her. Her best friend always knew what to say, always knew when to fill the silence. Charlotte nodded. She couldn't trust her voice yet. The shop was busy. Men in dark blue coveralls moved between cars, tools clanking against metal. Someone had a radio playing low, some old rock song Charlotte didn't recognize. The whole place smelled like oil and tire rubber and hard work. A woman in a neat blazer approached them, clipboard in hand. "Ms. Hale, I'm Ms. Patel, the estate manager. We spoke on the phone." "Yes." Charlotte shook her hand. Professional, controlled, the way her father had taught her. "Thank you for coordinating this." "Of course. The restoration timeline is tight, 2 weeks before the appraisal. But Reed Auto is the best in the state for vintage work." Ms. Patel gestured toward the back of the shop. "The owner will go over the assessment with you." Charlotte followed her gaze. A man knelt beside another car, his back to them. Even from here, she could see the careful way he examined something under the hood. His movements were precise, confident. "So," Tessa said, lowering her voice with a playful smile, "maybe you should thank the owner with coffee sometime." The words came out before Charlotte could stop them, sharp, defensive. "I don't date black guys." The shop didn't go silent all at once. It was worse than that. The sounds faded one by one. The wrench stopped clanking. The radio seemed to get quieter. Someone's phone conversation ended mid-sentence. The man by the other car stood up. He turned around. He was tall, broad-shouldered, maybe 32 or 33. His coveralls were clean despite the work, and his eyes met Charlotte's without flinching. There was no anger in his face. No shock, just a calm, steady assessment that made her feel smaller than she'd ever felt in her life. "Good," he said evenly. "I don't date close-minded girls." Charlotte's throat closed. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Tessa's hand found her elbow, but Charlotte barely felt it. The man walked toward them. Each step seemed to take forever. When he reached the teal convertible, he ran his hand along the hood with the same care he'd shown the other car, like it mattered, like it deserved respect. "Marcus Reed," he said, looking at Miss Patel, not at Charlotte. "I'll need to see the full history if you have it. Service records, any previous restoration work, original parts documentation." "I have everything in the file?" Miss Patel's voice was professional, but there was a tension in her shoulders that hadn't been there before. Marcus nodded. He pulled out his phone and started taking photos of the car. The dented front fender, the cracked dashboard, the torn leather on the driver's seat. He moved around the vehicle like Charlotte and Tessa weren't even there. Charlotte's hands shook. She pressed them against her thighs, hoping no one would notice. 2 weeks is aggressive, Marcus said finally, still not looking at her. But doable if we start tomorrow. Parts will take 3 to 5 days to arrive. That gives us time for the bodywork and interior before final assembly. The estate needs it appraised by the 15th, Ms. Patel said. Then we start at 8 a.m. Marcus handed her a business card. I'll email the estimate tonight. Payment terms are on the website. He walked away, back to the other car, back to work. Ms. Patel cleared her throat. I'll need your signature on the authorization forms, Ms. Hale. Charlotte signed without reading. Her hand didn't feel like her own. The pen moved across the paper, but she couldn't focus on the words. When she finished, she handed everything back and turned toward the door. Charlotte, Tessa started. Let's go. Outside, the afternoon sun felt too bright, too cheerful. Charlotte's SUV sat in the parking lot where she'd left it 20 minutes ago. 20 minutes. That's all it had taken to ruin everything. She climbed into the driver's seat. Tessa got in beside her, quiet now, knowing better than to speak. Charlotte started the engine. Her hands still shook on the wheel. In the rearview mirror, she could see her own face. Pale, tight, her mother's blue eyes staring back at her, her father's sharp cheekbones, the careful makeup that took 30 minutes every morning, the highlighted hair that cost more than most people made in a week. She looked like exactly what she was. A Hale. Old money, old name, old prejudices she'd never questioned until this moment. The shame hit her then, hot and sharp. She gripped the steering wheel harder. Char, don't. She pulled out of the parking lot and drove home in silence. The Hale estate sat on 12 acres overlooking the ocean. Charlotte had grown up here, learned to ride horses in the back pasture, had birthday parties on the south lawn, learned which fork to use at formal dinners before she turned 10. Now she walked through the house like a stranger. The garage was separate from the main house, connected by a covered walkway lined with roses. Charlotte's father kept his cars here, 3 of them, all European, all black. Her mother's teal convertible had been the only splash of color. Had been. Charlotte unlocked the side door and stepped inside. The garage was climate-controlled, spotless. Mr. Keegan, the groundskeeper, made sure of it. 2 empty spaces gaped at her, one where the convertible had been, one where her mother's sedan used to sit before they'd sold it last month. A file box sat on the workbench by the wall. Estate papers. Charlotte had been avoiding them for 3 weeks. She pulled the box down and started sorting through the contents. Asset inventories, property deeds, insurance policies. A letter from Ms. Patel outlining the timeline for settling the estate. Items requiring immediate attention. Vehicle restoration and appraisal. Vintage convertible. Deadline, 2 weeks from authorization. Charlotte set the letter aside and kept digging. At the bottom of the box, she found her mother's planner. The leather cover was soft from years of handling. Charlotte opened it carefully. The last entries were from April. Doctor's appointments, lunch with friends, a note about calling the mechanic for the convertible. The check engine light had been on. Her mother had died in May. She'd never made that call. Charlotte closed the planner and pressed it against her chest. The tears came then. Quiet, inevitable. Mr. Keegan found her 20 minutes later, still sitting on the garage floor. Miss Charlotte? His voice was gentle. He'd worked for the family since before she was born, had taught her how to change a tire when she was 16. Are you all right? I said something terrible today. The words spilled out before she could stop them. To the mechanic, the one who's going to fix Mom's car. Mr. Keegan lowered himself onto an old stool nearby. His knees creaked. Want to talk about it? I told him I don't date black guys. Charlotte laughed, but it came out bitter. Broken. Right to his face. Like it was something to be proud of. Ah. Tessa was teasing me about thanking him with coffee, and I panicked. It came out wrong. Did it? Mr. Keegan's voice stayed gentle, but there was something pointed in the question. Charlotte looked up at him. What do you mean? Sometimes things come out exactly the way we mean them. We just don't like how they sound in the open air. She wanted to argue, wanted to say he was wrong, but the words stuck in her throat. What did he say back? Mr. Keegan asked. He said he doesn't date close-minded girls. Charlotte wiped her eyes. Then he moved on, like I wasn't even worth getting angry at? Smart man. I wanted to apologize. Charlotte pulled out her phone. I drafted an email to the shop, but I deleted it. It felt wrong, too easy. Probably was. They sat in silence for a while. The sun shifted through the high windows, painting shadows across the concrete floor. Your mother loved that car, Mr. Keegan said eventually. Used to take it out on Sunday mornings, just her and the open road. She said it was the only time she felt really free. Charlotte had forgotten that. Or maybe she'd never really noticed. She wanted to take a trip in it, Mr. Keegan continued. Asked me to check the maps once. Had a route all picked out. Up the coast, through the small towns. She kept putting it off, though. Always something else to do. Something more important. She never went? No, Miss Charlotte, she never went. The weight of that settled over Charlotte like a blanket. Heavy, suffocating. All those Sunday mornings, all that freedom, and her mother had still died with dreams she never chased. I should go inside, Charlotte said, but she didn't move. The mechanic, Mr. Keegan said. Reed, you said? Marcus Reed. I know the family, good people. His father used to work at the marina before he passed. Young Marcus took over the shop when he was barely 25. Built it into something real. Charlotte nodded. She didn't know what else to do. Apologies matter, Mr. Keegan said, standing slowly. But they matter more when they're face to face, when they cost you something. He left her there with her mother's planner and the empty spaces where the cars used to be. The rain started just after sunset. Charlotte was driving home from dinner with her father, a tense, quiet meal where neither of them mentioned her mother. Neither of them mentioned much of anything. She took the coastal road because it was longer, because the house felt too empty tonight, because she needed the sound of the ocean, even if she couldn't see it in the dark. The first drops hit her windshield like a warning. Then the sky opened up. Charlotte turned on her wipers, slowed down. The road curved along the cliff edge, nothing but a thin guardrail between her and the rocks below. Her SUV made a sound, a grinding, choking sound that didn't belong. The dashboard lights flickered. The engine stuttered. No, no, no! She pulled over onto the narrow shoulder and put on her hazard lights. Rain hammered the roof. She tried the engine again. Nothing. The starter clicked uselessly. Charlotte grabbed her phone. No signal. Of course, this part of the coast was notorious for dead zones. She was trying the engine a third time when headlights appeared behind her. A truck slowed, pulled onto the shoulder 20 feet back. A man got out. Rain immediately soaked his jacket. He walked to her window and she rolled it down 2 inches. Need help? It was Marcus Reed. Charlotte's stomach dropped. Of all the people, of all the nights. My engine died, she said. Her voice sounded small, scared. Pop the hood. She did. Marcus disappeared to the front of her SUV. Through the rain-streaked windshield, she could see him bent over the engine, a small flashlight in his mouth. He moved quickly, efficiently, like he'd done this 1,000 times before. 2 minutes. That's all it took. He came back to her window, water dripping from his hair. Battery terminal came loose. Probably from the rough roads. I tightened it. Try starting it now. Charlotte turned the key. The engine caught immediately, purring like nothing had ever been wrong. Thank you, she said. Marcus just nodded. He started walking back to his truck. Wait. Charlotte opened her door, rain immediately soaking her. Let me pay you for your time. He turned back. Get home safe, Ms. Hale. Then he was gone, climbing into his truck, pulling back onto the road. His taillights faded into the storm. Charlotte sat in her running SUV, rain pouring around her, and whispered to no one, Thank you. The next morning, Charlotte woke up before dawn. She hadn't slept well. Kept seeing Marcus's face in the rain. Kept hearing her own voice saying those terrible words. I don't date black guys. Like it was something casual, something that didn't matter. She got dressed in the dark. Jeans, a simple sweater, no makeup. Her hair pulled back in a ponytail. Then she drove into town. The coffee shop opened at 6. Charlotte was waiting outside when the owner unlocked the door. She ordered 6 large coffees and a dozen pastries. Paid in cash, wrote a note on the shop's stationery they kept by the register for customer orders. To the team at Reed Auto. I'm sorry for my words yesterday. There's no excuse for what I said. Thank you for helping me last night on the coastal road. Thank you for taking care of my mother's car. Charlotte Hale. She drove to the shop before 7. The parking lot was empty except for Marcus's truck. A light was on inside. Charlotte left the coffee and pastries by the front door with the note on top. Then she drove away before anyone could see her. At noon, her phone rang. Ms. Patel. Ms. Hale, the parts have been ordered. Mr. Reed needs to schedule daily check-ins with you to ensure we stay on timeline for the appraisal. Daily check-ins? It's standard for estate restorations. He needs your input on certain decisions. Original parts versus replicas, color matching, interior details. The executor needs to approve everything. Charlotte closed her eyes. Of course there would be daily meetings. When does he want to meet? 4 p.m., daily, starting today. Can you make that work? What choice did she have? Yes, I'll be there. She hung up and stared at her phone for a long time. Then she texted Tessa. That came out wrong yesterday. I sounded like my father. Tessa's response came immediately. You want to sound like yourself? Go. Apologize. For real this time. At 3:55, Charlotte parked outside Reed Auto. Her hands were sweating. Her heart was racing. She could do this. She'd given presentations to her father's business partners, had hosted charity events with 100 guests, had navigated her mother's funeral with grace and composure. She could apologize to a mechanic she'd insulted. The shop was busy. Luis, the name embroidered on his coverall, waved her toward the back bay. The teal convertible sat on a lift, its underside exposed. Marcus stood beneath it, making notes on a tablet. Mr. Reed? Her voice came out steadier than she expected. He looked at her, really looked at her, not angry, not cold, just waiting. Thank you for the coffee, he said. The crew appreciated it. Charlotte saw her note pinned to a corkboard by the time clock. The sight of it made her throat tight. I need to say something, she said. Face to face this time. Marcus set down his tablet, crossed his arms. Go ahead. What I said yesterday? I spoke from fear, not truth. I was defensive because my friend was teasing me, and I said something terrible instead of just laughing it off. There's no excuse for it. I'm sorry. The words hung in the air between them. Marcus studied her face for a long moment, then he nodded once. Okay. Okay? We can work together, but I need respect, punctuality, and no special treatment because your family has money. The car gets done right, or it doesn't get done at all. I understand. Good. He picked up his tablet again. 2 weeks is tight. We'll need to stay on schedule. No missed meetings. I won't miss any. Marcus pulled up a calendar on his tablet. Parts arrive Wednesday. That gives us 3 days for bodywork and primer. Interior work starts Friday. Paint and final assembly next week. Appraisal is the 15th. He showed her the timeline. Charlotte nodded at each point, even though her mind was spinning. 4 p.m. tomorrow? Marcus asked. I'll be here. He turned back to the car. The meeting was over. Charlotte walked back to her SUV slowly. Her hands had stopped shaking. Her heart rate was almost normal. Behind her, through the shop's open bay doors, she heard Luis say something. Heard Marcus's low response. Heard laughter. She sat in her car for a minute before starting the engine. The note was still pinned to the corkboard. Her words. Her apology. Out in the open, where everyone could see it. Maybe that was the point. Maybe that was what it cost to mean it. Charlotte drove home as the sun started to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Tomorrow, she'd be back. And the day after that, 2 weeks of 4 p.m. meetings with a man who'd seen her at her worst and still agreed to help. 2 weeks to prove she was better than what she'd shown him. Better than what she'd been taught. 2 weeks to restore more than just her mother's car. The days fell into a pattern. Charlotte arrived at the shop at 4 p.m. Marcus showed her what needed deciding. She made choices about things she'd never thought about before. Whether to replace the chrome trim or restore the original. What shade of teal matched her mother's vision. Whether the seats should be reupholstered or repaired. Marcus never rushed her. Never made her feel stupid for asking questions. On Wednesday, the parts arrived. Charlotte watched Marcus unpack boxes like they contained treasure. Fuel lines, gaskets, wiring harnesses, things she couldn't have named a week ago. The original carburetor is still good, he told her, holding up a grimy metal component. Just needs cleaning. That's rare for a car this age. My mother took good care of it, Charlotte said. I can tell. Marcus set the carburetor aside carefully. The engine block is solid. No cracks, no warping. Someone loved this car. The words hit Charlotte harder than they should have. Someone loved this car, past tense, because her mother was gone, and the car was just metal and rubber now. Just parts that needed fixing. She blinked back tears and focused on the clipboard in her hands. Thursday afternoon, her phone rang during the 4 p.m. meeting. Her father's name flashed on the screen. Charlotte stepped outside to answer. Hi, Dad. Charlotte, I need you at the Harbor View restaurant tomorrow night. 7 p.m. donor dinner? Graham Lyle will be attending. His family is interested in the coastal development project. It would be good for you to be seen together. Good optics. Charlotte's grip tightened on her phone. Graham was nice enough, polite, successful. Everything her father wanted in a future son-in-law. But Graham talked about quarterly earnings over dinner, about stock portfolios and investment strategies, about things that made Charlotte's mind drift to other places. Dad, I don't think... 7 p.m. Wear something appropriate. I've already confirmed your attendance. The line went dead. Charlotte stood in the parking lot, staring at her phone. The late afternoon sun felt too warm, the air too thick. She went back inside. Marcus was under the car again, checking something on the suspension. Everything okay? He asked, without looking at her. I might be late tomorrow. He slid out from under the car and met her eyes. His expression was unreadable. We'll make it work. But Charlotte saw something flicker across his face. Something that looked like disappointment. It's just... my father needs me at a dinner. A business thing. You don't owe me explanations, Ms. Hale. The formality stung. They'd been talking easily all week. She'd started thinking of him as Marcus, not Mr. Reed, had started looking forward to 4 p.m. in ways that had nothing to do with the car. "I'll be here by 5:30, she said. "I promise." Marcus nodded and went back under the car. Friday evening, Charlotte sat across from Graham Lyle at the Harborview restaurant and tried to care about what he was saying. The waterfront development could revitalize the whole downtown corridor, Graham explained, cutting his steak with precision. "Your father's firm is positioned perfectly to handle the legal work." "Mm-hmm." Charlotte pushed her salmon around her plate. "Charlotte, are you listening?" "Sorry. Yes, waterfront development. It sounds great." Graham smiled. It was a patient smile. The kind you gave to a child who wasn't paying attention. "You seem distracted?" "Just a long week." "The estate business?" "Yes." "I heard you're restoring your mother's car. That's a nice gesture." A nice gesture, like it was something she was doing for show, for appearances. Charlotte set down her fork. "It's more than that." "Of course." Graham reached across the table and patted her hand. "I didn't mean to minimize it." But he had, and they both knew it. Charlotte's phone sat face up on the table. A text from Tessa appeared. "How's dinner with Mr. Perfect?" Charlotte typed back under the table. "I keep comparing him to Marcus." She hit send before she remembered Graham was sitting right there. Before she remembered her phone was face up on the white tablecloth. Graham's eyes flicked down. She saw him read the name, saw his smile tighten just slightly. "Marcus?" he asked casually. "Friend of yours?" "The mechanic, the one restoring my mom's car." "Ah." Graham took a sip of wine. "I didn't realize you were on a first-name basis." There was something in his tone. Nothing obvious, nothing Charlotte could call out. But it was there. "We've been working together all week," she said carefully. "Of course." Graham's smile returned, but it didn't reach his eyes. "It's good to be friendly with service providers." Service providers. Like Marcus was someone who delivered her mail, someone whose name didn't matter. Charlotte picked up her phone and turned it face down. They finished dinner making small talk about nothing important. When Graham offered to have his driver take her home, Charlotte declined. "I prefer to drive," she said. "Independent." Graham kissed her cheek. "That's what I've always admired about you." Charlotte drove home thinking about 4 p.m. meetings, about careful hands restoring her mother's car, about a man who'd helped her in the rain and refused payment, about how Graham had never once asked what Marcus looked like, had just assumed, had known, somehow, from the tone of that text and the way Charlotte's face had changed when she read it. The realization made her sick. Saturday morning, Charlotte brought breakfast pastries to the shop, a peace offering for being late yesterday, for letting her father control her schedule, for things she couldn't quite name. Luis grinned when he saw the box. "Miss Hale, you're spoiling us." "Just trying to say thank you," Charlotte said. Marcus came out of the office, wiping his hands on a rag. "You didn't have to do that." "I wanted to." Something shifted in his expression, not quite a smile, but close. "Come on, I want to show you something." He led her to the teal convertible. The body was prepped for paint now, smooth and perfect. But Marcus wasn't pointing at the bodywork. He was pointing at the driver's seat. "See this split in the seam?" He traced a line with his finger. "It's repairable, but it's delicate work. Hand stitching. I thought you might want to help." "Me?" "It's your mother's car. Might mean something to do part of the work yourself." Charlotte stared at the leather seat, at the split seam that her mother had probably sat on 1,000 times, at the wear patterns that showed where her mother's hands had gripped the wheel. "I don't know how," she admitted. "I'll teach you." Marcus pulled up 2 work stools and opened a small toolkit. He showed her the curved needle, the waxed thread, the technique for keeping stitches even and tight. "You go slow," he explained, demonstrating. "Each stitch matters. Rush it, and it'll pull apart again in 6 months." Charlotte watched his hands. Strong hands, steady hands. Hands that knew what they were doing. "Your turn," Marcus said, handing her the needle. Her first stitch was crooked, her second worse. By the third, she was laughing at herself. "This is harder than it looks." "Most things are." Marcus adjusted her grip. His hand brushed hers, warm and calloused. "But you're getting it. See? That one's better." Luis turned on the radio across the shop. Classic rock, turned low. The music filled the spaces between conversation. Charlotte stitched slowly. Marcus worked beside her, patient when she fumbled, quiet when she concentrated. The morning sun streamed through the bay doors, painting everything in gold. For the first time in weeks, Charlotte felt peaceful. "We'll finish this by tomorrow afternoon," Marcus said after an hour. "Then the seat goes out for professional upholstery work, but the seam will be yours." "Thank you," Charlotte said, and she meant it for more than just the stitching lesson. Sunday afternoon, Charlotte's phone rang while she was practicing stitches on scrap leather at home. Marcus's name appeared on the screen. Her heart jumped. He'd never called her before. "Hello? Ms. Hale, I'm sorry to bother you on Sunday." Marcus sounded stressed. "Noah, my brother, missed his ride home from school. Some academic thing ran late. I'm stuck at the shop with a customer's car on the lift, and I can't leave for another hour. Is there any chance you could—" "Yes, text me the address." "Are you sure? I wouldn't ask, but—" "Marcus, it's fine. I'm happy to help." The address came through 30 seconds later. Charlotte grabbed her keys and drove to the high school on the north side of town. Noah Reed sat on the front steps, backpack beside him, looking at his phone. He was tall like Marcus, but younger. 17, maybe 18. He had the same steady way of holding himself. Charlotte parked and got out. "Noah?" He looked up, confused. "Yeah? I'm Charlotte. Your brother sent me." Understanding dawned. "Oh, you're the car lady." "The car lady." Charlotte smiled. "I guess that's me." Noah grabbed his backpack and climbed into her SUV. He was quiet at first, polite in that way teenagers are around adults they don't know. "Thanks for the ride," he said. "Marcus usually picks me up, but we had a robotics club meeting that went late." "Robotics?" "Yeah, I'm team captain. We're competing regionally next month." Charlotte glanced at him. "That's impressive." Noah shrugged, but she could see the pride in his face. "I like building things, figuring out how they work." "Like your brother." "Yeah, he's the one who got me into it. Brought home circuit boards and motors when I was a kid. Taught me how to solder before I was 10. They drove through town, past the marina and the shops on Main Street. Noah relaxed as they talked. Told her about his college applications, about wanting to study mechanical engineering, about how Marcus had been saving for his tuition since he was 14. "He's done everything for me," Noah said quietly. "Our mom died when I was 6. Marcus was only 21, but he became my legal guardian. Took over Dad's shop, made sure I stayed in school, made sure I had everything I needed." Charlotte's throat tightened. Marcus had raised his brother, had put his own life on hold to make sure Noah had a future. "He sounds like a good brother," she managed. "He's the best." Noah looked out the window. "Sometimes I worry he gave up too much, you know? He never dates, never takes time for himself, just works and makes sure I'm okay." They pulled up to Reed Auto. Marcus came out of the shop immediately, relief clear on his face. "Thanks, Charlotte," Noah said, grabbing his backpack. Then softer, Those stitches on the car seat? They look really good. He headed inside before Charlotte could respond. Marcus walked to her window. I owe you. No, you don't. Noah's great. He is. Marcus's expression softened. Thanks for picking him up. I know it was out of your way. It wasn't. And he told me about robotics, about college. You should be proud. I am. They looked at each other for a long moment. The late afternoon sun painted shadows across Marcus's face. Charlotte wanted to say something else. Wanted to tell him that what he'd done for Noah mattered. That raising a brother alone while building a business was more impressive than anything Graham had ever accomplished with his trust fund and connections. But she just said, "See you tomorrow at 4? I'll be here." Charlotte drove home thinking about duty, about sacrifice, about a man who'd given up everything to make sure his brother had a chance at something better. Monday afternoon, Edward Hale and Graham Lyle appeared at Reed Auto. Charlotte was looking at paint samples when she heard her father's voice at the front desk. Her stomach dropped. "We were in the area," Edward said, walking into the bay like he owned the place. Graham followed, perfectly dressed in a suit that probably cost more than Marcus's truck. "Dad." Charlotte set down the paint samples. "What are you doing here?" "Checking on the progress. This is a significant asset." Marcus straightened from where he'd been examining the convertible's frame. He wiped his hands and extended one to Edward. "Mr. Hale, the work is on schedule. We'll have it ready for appraisal by the 15th. Edward shook his hand briefly. His smile was polite, professional, the smile he used with people he didn't consider equals. Charlotte's face burned. "Impressive operation," Graham said, looking around the shop. "I've heard good things about Reed Auto. Actually, I have a client who might be interested in the convertible once it's restored. A collector." "It's not for sale," Charlotte said quickly. Graham raised an eyebrow. "I thought this was part of the estate liquidation?" "We haven't decided yet." Edward's jaw tightened. "Charlotte, we've discussed this. The estate needs to be settled efficiently." "I know, Dad, but this was Mom's car. I'm not ready to—" She stopped. Took a breath. "Can we talk about this at home?" Edward looked at Marcus, then back at Charlotte. Something calculating passed across his face. "Of course. We'll discuss it later." He and Graham made small talk for another few minutes. Asked Marcus about timeline, about parts, about things that didn't matter. Marcus answered every question with professional courtesy, but Charlotte could see the tension in his shoulders. When they finally left, the shop felt too quiet. "I'm sorry," Charlotte said. "My father shouldn't have just shown up like that." Marcus picked up his tools. "It's his daughter's car. He has a right to check on it." "But the way he—" Charlotte stopped. How could she explain that her father's politeness was worse than rudeness? That his professional courtesy was a weapon? "We'll stay on schedule," Marcus said, not looking at her. "The car will be ready for appraisal. That's what matters." But Charlotte saw the way he held himself, saw the distance he'd put between them. That night, Edward called her at home. "Graham mentioned something interesting," he said without preamble. "He saw a text on your phone at dinner Friday. Something about comparing him to Marcus?" Charlotte's hands went cold. "Dad, I'm not angry, I'm concerned. This mechanic, he's working for us, that's all. You understand that, don't you? His name is Marcus, and yes, he's restoring Mom's car, but nothing, Charlotte. Think about how this looks. The Hale name has a reputation. Associations matter. Associations, like Marcus was something shameful, something to hide." "I'm not doing anything wrong," Charlotte said. "I'm sure you're not. I'm just reminding you to be careful. People talk in this town." After he hung up, Charlotte sat on her bedroom floor and cried. Not because her father was wrong, because part of her had always believed he was right. Tuesday afternoon, Charlotte and Marcus found the cedar box. They were cataloging the trunk contents for Ms. Patel when Marcus pulled out a small wooden box tucked behind the spare tire. It was beautiful, hand-carved, with a tiny hummingbird etched into the lid. "Should I open it?" Marcus asked. Charlotte nodded. Her hands were shaking. Inside were postcards from coastal towns, a pressed wildflower still holding traces of purple, a folded map with a route marked in red pen, up the coast, through small towns, ending at an overlook Charlotte recognized from childhood trips, and a note in her mother's handwriting, "For the drive I'm going to take. The one where I don't plan anything, where I just go." Charlotte's vision blurred. She never took it. "The route's still there," Marcus said quietly. "It's beautiful in the evening, when the tide is low and the sun hits the water just right." Charlotte looked at him. "You've driven it?" "Yeah, when I need to think. When the shop gets too loud and I need quiet." They packed the box carefully, set it on the passenger seat where Charlotte's mother had probably imagined it would sit during her drive. "When the car runs," Marcus said, "we should take it. The test drive. Do the route your mother planned." "Really?" "The car should do what it was meant to do, even if it's late." Charlotte nodded. She couldn't speak past the lump in her throat. Thursday evening, the car turned over for the first time. Marcus had called Charlotte at 6 p.m. after her regular 4 o'clock meeting. "Can you come back to the shop? There's something you should see." She drove faster than she should have. When she arrived, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Marcus stood beside the teal convertible. The hood was up. The engine gleamed. "Want to do the honors?" he asked, handing her the keys. Charlotte slid into the driver's seat. The leather smelled like new upholstery and old memories. She put the key in the ignition, turned it. The engine roared to life. Smooth, confident, perfect. Charlotte laughed, then she cried, then she laughed again. Marcus leaned against the door, smiling. Really smiling this time. "She sounds good. She sounds perfect. Tomorrow's Friday. Weather's supposed to be clear. What do you say we take that drive? Do your mother's route?" Charlotte looked at him. At this man who'd helped her when she didn't deserve it, who'd taught her to stitch leather, who'd restored more than just a car these past 2 weeks. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I'd like that." Friday evening, they drove. Marcus drove first, getting a feel for the car. Charlotte sat in the passenger seat with the cedar box in her lap. The windows were down. The ocean breeze filled the car with salt air and possibilities. They drove through small towns Charlotte had never visited, past antique shops and diners and harbors filled with fishing boats, past beaches where families were packing up from a day in the sun. Marcus didn't talk much. Neither did Charlotte. The silence was comfortable, easy. At the overlook, Marcus parked, and they got out. The sun was setting over the water, turning everything gold and pink. The tide was low, just like Marcus had said. Rocks jutted from the water like ancient monuments. "My mother would have loved this," Charlotte said. "She had good taste." They stood side by side, watching the sun sink lower. Charlotte could feel the warmth radiating from Marcus's arm, inches from hers. "I need to apologize again," she said suddenly. "For that first day, for what I said. I've been thinking about it all week and I was wrong. Not just in what I said, but in what I believed. What I'd been taught to believe." Marcus turned to look at her. "What changed?" "You did. This did." Charlotte gestured at the car, the overlook, everything. "You showed me who you are by your actions. And I realized I'd been so focused on what people looked like, on what my father thought was suitable, that I never asked what mattered. Who mattered? And who matters?" Marcus's voice was quiet. "You do." The words hung between them. Charlotte's heart pounded so hard she thought Marcus must be able to hear it. Marcus stepped closer. Charlotte, I need you to understand something. I don't do halfway. I don't date people who hide me, who keep me secret because of what their family might think. I wouldn't. Your father made it pretty clear what he thinks of me. And Graham, your suitable future husband, looked at me like I was furniture. I'm not asking you to fight your whole family, but I'm asking if you're willing to. Charlotte reached for his hand. I'm willing. Marcus searched her face. Whatever he saw there must have satisfied him, because he smiled. Then he leaned down and kissed her. It was soft at first, tentative. Then Charlotte's hands found his jacket and pulled him closer, and Marcus's arms wrapped around her waist, and the sunset and the ocean and everything else faded away. When they finally broke apart, Charlotte was breathless. I'll talk to my father tomorrow, she promised. I'll tell him about us. Are you sure? I'm sure. They drove back as the stars came out, Charlotte's hand in Marcus's over the console. The teal convertible hummed along the coastal road, finally doing what it was meant to do. Charlotte had never felt more free. Saturday morning, the text came before Charlotte could talk to her father. Edward wanted her at breakfast, wanted to discuss the estate timeline and other matters. Charlotte dressed carefully, rehearsed what she'd say. But when she walked into the breakfast room, Edward was already on the phone. His face was tight, angry. He hung up and turned to her. Sit down. Charlotte sat. Graham called me last night, said he saw you at the Overlook, with the mechanic. He was driving by on his way back from a business meeting. Charlotte's stomach dropped. Dad? Is it true? Yes. Marcus and I, we drove the route Mom had planned. The one from her box. She took a breath. We're dating. Edward set down his coffee cup, hard. Dating? Yes. Charlotte, this is... He stopped, rubbed his temples. This is complicated. It doesn't have to be. He's black. The words fell like stones. I know, Charlotte said, and I don't care. But other people will, our friends, our business associates, the people who matter in this town. If they care about that, then they don't matter. Edward looked at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. You can't be serious. I am. Marcus is kind. He's hard-working. He raised his brother alone. He's good, Dad. Better than Graham. Better than any of the men you've introduced me to. This isn't about good or bad. It's about what's appropriate, what's expected. Expected by who? You? Your friends? Charlotte's voice rose. Mom would have understood. Don't bring your mother into this. Why not? She's the whole reason Marcus and I met. Her car, her dream drive. Maybe this is what she would have wanted, for me to do something real instead of just playing a role. Edward stood up. I need you to think very carefully about what you're doing. This isn't just about you. It's about this family, about our reputation. I have thought about it. Charlotte stood too. And I choose Marcus. Even if it costs you your place in this family. The threat hung in the air, cold, final. Charlotte's hands shook, but her voice stayed steady. I hope it doesn't come to that. She left before he could respond. In her car, she grabbed her phone, typed a text to Marcus. Can we keep us quiet for now? Just until I figure things out with my father? She stared at the message. Every instinct screamed at her to delete it, but fear won. She hit send. The response came 2 minutes later. I can't be hidden, Charlotte. I told you that. Then another message. I'll finish the contract. Then we're done. Charlotte sat in her car outside her father's house and finally understood what it cost to choose fear over love. Charlotte drove to Mrs. Alvarez's diner because she couldn't go home and she couldn't sit still. The diner was on Main Street, A small place with red vinyl booths and a counter with chrome stools. It had been there for 40 years. Charlotte's mother used to bring her here for milkshakes after piano lessons. She slid into a corner booth and ordered coffee she didn't want. Her phone sat on the table. Marcus's words stared back at her. "I'll finish the contract, then we're done." She'd ruined it. 2 weeks of building trust, gone in one text message. Because she was scared. Because her father's disapproval mattered more than her promises. Mrs. Alvarez brought the coffee and sat down across from her. She was a small woman with silver hair and kind eyes that missed nothing. "You look like your mama did when she was struggling with something," Mrs. Alvarez said. "Same expression, like the weight of the world is sitting on your shoulders." Charlotte wiped her eyes. "I made a mistake." "We all do, mija. Question is, what are you going to do about it?" "I don't know if I can fix it." Mrs. Alvarez reached across the table and took Charlotte's hand. "Plain words fix what fancy ones break. You want to make something right? You say what you mean. You say it to the person's face, and you mean it enough to change." "What if it's too late?" "Then at least you tried. At least you were brave enough to tell the truth." Charlotte's phone buzzed. "Tessa. Where are you?" She texted back the address. Tessa arrived 10 minutes later, sliding into the booth beside Charlotte. "Okay," Tessa said. "Tell me what happened." Charlotte told her everything. The kiss at the Overlook, her father's threat, the text she sent Marcus, his response. "I panicked," Charlotte finished. "I asked him to stay quiet, to hide, after I promised I wouldn't do that." Tessa was quiet for a long moment. "Do you love him?" The question caught Charlotte off guard. Love. They'd only known each other 2 weeks. But she thought about Marcus's steady hands restoring her mother's car. About the way he'd helped her in the rain without asking for thanks. About how he'd raised his brother alone and never complained. About the careful way he'd taught her to stitch leather. About the sunset kiss that had felt like coming home. "Yes," she whispered. "I think I do." "Then you fight for him. Not against your father, but for Marcus. You show him that you choose him, not in secret, not when it's convenient. All the time, in small ways and big ways." "What if my father disowns me?" "Then he does. But you'll have Marcus, and you'll have yourself. The person you want to be, not the person your father wants you to be." Mrs. Alvarez pushed a napkin across the table. "Write what you need to say. To Marcus first, then to your father. Simple, honest." Charlotte picked up a pen with shaking hands. "Marcus, I was wrong. First day in today, I choose you. Not in secret, not quietly. I choose you." She stared at the words. They looked too simple, too small for what she needed to say. "Now the hard one," Tessa said. "What do you need to say to your father?" Charlotte wrote slowly. "Dad, I love you, but I love Marcus too. I'm choosing a life that's mine, not just a look that fits your expectations. I hope you can accept that. But even if you can't, this is my choice." "Good," Mrs. Alvarez said. "Now say them, out loud, to the people who need to hear them." Charlotte drove to her father's house at 6:30 that evening. He was in his study, going through papers. He looked up when she knocked. "Charlotte, I thought you'd left." "I came back. I need to say something, and I need you to listen." Edward set down his pen. His face was unreadable. Charlotte stood in the doorway, the napkin with her words clutched in her hand. But she didn't need to look at it. The words were already burned into her heart. "I love you, Dad. I do. But I also love Marcus, and I'm choosing to be with him. Not because I'm fighting you. Not to make a statement. Because he's good and kind, and he makes me want to be better." "Charlotte, please, let me finish." She took a breath. Mom never took her dream drive. She had the route planned. She had the car. But she kept putting it off because there was always something more important. Some obligation, some appearance to keep up. And then she ran out of time. Edward's face went pale. "I don't want to run out of time," Charlotte continued. "I don't want to look back at my life and realize I spent it trying to please everyone else, trying to fit into some perfect picture that doesn't even make me happy." "This family has a reputation," Edward said quietly. "A legacy. I know, and I'm part of that family, but I'm also my own person. I'm choosing a life that's mine, Dad. Not just a look that fits your expectations. I hope you can accept that. But even if you can't, this is my choice." The silence stretched between them. Finally, Edward said, "You're an adult, Charlotte. I can't stop you." It wasn't blessing, it wasn't approval, but it wasn't disownment either. "Thank you," Charlotte whispered. She left before he could say anything else. The next morning, Charlotte arrived at Reed Auto at 7:55. Marcus's truck was already in the lot. The shop wasn't open yet. She sat in her car, rehearsing what she needed to say. At 8 o'clock, Marcus walked out of the building. He stopped when he saw her SUV. Charlotte got out. Her legs felt weak. "Marcus, please, I need to talk to you." "Charlotte." "I was wrong." The words tumbled out. "I was wrong on the first day when I said what I said, and I was wrong yesterday when I sent that text. I panicked. My father threatened me, and I got scared, and I asked you to hide, after I promised I wouldn't do that." Marcus crossed his arms. His face was guarded. "Okay. I talked to my father last night. I told him about us, about you. I told him I'm choosing you. Not in secret, not quietly. I choose you, Marcus." "What did he say?" "He said I'm an adult, and he can't stop me." Charlotte's voice shook. "It's not a blessing, but it's not a disowning either. It's a start." Marcus studied her face. "Are you choosing me, or are you fighting your father?" The question hit hard. Charlotte had expected it. Tessa had asked the same thing, but it still made her pause. "You," she said finally. "I'm choosing you, because when I'm with you, I like who I am. Because you see me, not just the Hale name. Because you helped me in the rain, without wanting anything back. Because you raised your brother, and built a business, and restored my mother's car with more care than anyone else would have given it. Charlotte, I know 2 weeks isn't long. I know I've messed up twice now. But I'm asking for another chance. Not to hide, not to keep quiet, to be with you in small, visible ways, to choose you every day, if you'll let me." Marcus was quiet for a long time. The morning sun painted shadows across the parking lot. Somewhere inside the shop, someone turned on the radio. "The car's done," Marcus said finally. "Appraisal is tomorrow. After that, the contract is complete." Charlotte's heart sank. "I understand. But," Marcus stepped closer, "after that, if you want to take another drive on your mother's route, I'd like to come with you, not as your mechanic, as whatever we are." Hope fluttered in Charlotte's chest. "What are we?" "I don't know yet, but I'd like to find out." Marcus's expression softened. "I believe you, Charlotte, about choosing me, but I need to see it, not just hear it." "Then I'll show you," Charlotte promised. "Every day, in small ways and big ways." Marcus held out his hand. Charlotte took it. "Let's finish the checklist," he said. "Then we'll take that drive you promised. The Dawn wrote, in daylight this time." They spent the morning going over every detail of the car. The engine ran perfectly. The paint gleamed teal in the sunlight, exactly the shade her mother had loved. The interior was spotless, the hand-stitched seam barely visible unless you knew to look for it. Charlotte opened the glove compartment and carefully placed the cedar box inside, right where her mother had planned to put it. She'd be proud, Marcus said quietly. Of the car? Of you. The words broke something open in Charlotte's chest. She turned away so Marcus wouldn't see her cry. Noah showed up at 11, finished with Saturday morning robotics club. He looked between Charlotte and Marcus and grinned. You guys work it out? Working on it, Marcus said. Good. Charlotte's cooler than anyone else you've almost dated. Almost dated? Marcus raised an eyebrow. Yeah. Remember that woman from the parts supplier? Or the one who came to get her transmission fixed and asked you out 3 times? Noah counted on his fingers. You never actually went out with any of them. Because I was busy. Because you're picky. Noah looked at Charlotte. He's worth it, though. Just so you know. Charlotte smiled through her tears. I know. They took the coastal drive at noon. Marcus drove first, the same as before. But this time, Noah came too, sitting in the back seat with sodas from the gas station. The route was different in daylight. Charlotte could see the small towns clearly now. The antique shops with their hand-painted signs. The diners with checkered tablecloths visible through windows. The beaches where families spread blankets and built sandcastles. Her mother had planned this drive for a reason. Not for the destination, but for the journey. For the small moments that added up to freedom. They stopped at the overlook. The ocean spread before them, endless and blue. Noah took photos with his phone while Marcus and Charlotte stood at the railing. Thank you, Charlotte said. For giving me another chance? Thank you for fighting for it, Marcus replied. They sat on the hood of the teal convertible, the 3 of them, watching sailboats drift across the water. Nobody talked, much. It was enough just to be there. On the drive back, Charlotte's phone rang. Her father. She almost didn't answer, but Marcus squeezed her hand and she picked up. Hello? Charlotte. Edward's voice was formal. I've been thinking about what you said last night. Okay. I'd like to meet him. Marcus. Properly. Not at his shop. Here. Dinner. Next Sunday, if he's available. Charlotte's breath caught. You want to have dinner? I'm not saying I approve, but you're my daughter, and if this is important to you... He paused. I'd like to understand why. It wasn't much, but it was more than Charlotte had hoped for. I'll ask him, she said. Thank you, Dad. After she hung up, she turned to Marcus. My father wants to have dinner at the house next Sunday. You and Noah if you want. Marcus glanced in the rearview mirror at his brother. What do you think, Noah? Free food? Noah said. I'm in. Marcus smiled. Then we'll be there. The week passed in a new rhythm. Charlotte spent her days settling the estate details with Ms. Patel. The appraisal came in high. The car was worth more than they'd expected. Edward suggested selling it to Graham's collector client. Charlotte said no. She was keeping it. For Sunday drives. For freedom. Edward didn't argue. Every afternoon, Charlotte stopped by Reed Auto. Not for check-ins anymore. Just to visit. To bring coffee. To watch Marcus work. To talk with Noah about his college applications. Luis teased them mercilessly. Boss finally got a girlfriend. Thought I'd never see the day. We're taking it slow, Marcus said. You've been taking it slow for 10 years. This is progress. Thursday evening, Tessa met Charlotte for dinner at Mrs. Alvarez's diner. You look different, Tessa said. Happy. I am happy. Charlotte smiled. Terrified, but happy. That's how you know it's real. Mrs. Alvarez brought them pie they hadn't ordered. On the house. For courage. Courage for what? Charlotte asked. For Sunday. Mrs. Alvarez patted her shoulder. Family dinners are always hard, especially when you're teaching people to see with new eyes. Sunday evening arrived too fast. Charlotte spent the afternoon helping Mr. Keegan set the dining room table. Simple, elegant. Not the formal china her father used for business dinners, but the everyday dishes her mother had loved. "Nervous?" Mr. Keegan asked. "Yes?" "That's normal, but you're doing the right thing." Marcus and Noah arrived at 6:30. Marcus wore a button-down shirt and slacks. Noah had on khakis and a tie that was slightly crooked. They both looked uncomfortable. Charlotte met them at the door. "You didn't have to dress up." "Dinner at the Hale house?" Marcus said. Seemed appropriate. Edward appeared in the hallway. He looked at Marcus for a long moment. Then he extended his hand. "Edward Hale, thank you for coming." "Marcus Reed, this is my brother Noah." They shook hands. The atmosphere was careful, polite, like everyone was walking on ice. Dinner was simple. Roast chicken, vegetables from Mr. Keegan's garden, fresh bread, nothing fancy. At first, conversation was stilted. Edward asked about the shop. Marcus answered with professional courtesy. Charlotte wanted to scream. Then Noah started talking about robotics, about the competition next month, about his engineering scholarship applications. Edward leaned forward. "Which schools are you looking at?" "MIT is my reach school, but I'd be happy with UMass or Northeastern, somewhere with a strong mechanical engineering program." "What's your focus?" "Automation, efficiency. I like figuring out how to make systems work better." Noah's face lit up as he talked. "Marcus taught me that. How every part matters. How nothing works if you cut corners." Edward glanced at Marcus. Something shifted in his expression. "Your brother raised you?" Edward asked. "Yes, sir. Since I was 6. Our mom passed, and Marcus became my legal guardian. Took over our dad's shop. Made sure I stayed in school. Made sure I had everything I needed." "That's..." Edward paused. "That's admirable." Marcus shrugged. "It's what needed to be done. Still, not everyone would have done it." The ice started to crack. Not break, not yet, but crack. They talked about the shop, about business, about the challenges of running a small company in a town dominated by chains. Edward asked questions, real questions, not polite ones. Marcus answered honestly. Charlotte watched her father's face change. Watched him see Marcus, not just the color of his skin or the oil under his nails. After dinner, Edward walked Marcus to the door. Charlotte and Noah hung back, giving them space. "Thank you for restoring the car," Edward said. "My wife would have appreciated the care you took." "It was an honor to work on it." Edward was quiet for a moment. Then, "I can't say I understand my daughter's choices, but I can see why she made them." It wasn't a blessing, but it was closer than Charlotte had dared hope. Marcus nodded. "Thank you, Mr. Hale." In the car, driving home, Noah said, "That wasn't as bad as I thought it would be." "No," Marcus agreed. "It wasn't." Charlotte stood on the front steps and watched their taillights fade. Her father came up beside her. "He's not what I expected," Edward said. "What did you expect?" "I don't know, but not..." He stopped. "He's a good man, Charlotte. He raised his brother, built a business, took care of your mother's car like it mattered." "It did matter. To him. That's who he is." Edward nodded slowly. "Your mother would have liked him." The words hung in the night air between them. "Yes," Charlotte said. "She would have." Thursday became their night. Every Thursday at 6 p.m., Charlotte met Marcus at Mrs. Alvarez's diner. Sometimes Noah came. Sometimes it was just the two of them. They talked about small things and big things, about Noah's college visits, about expanding the shop, about Charlotte's plans to volunteer at the youth center, about the future they were building in small, steady ways. One Thursday evening, a month after the dinner at her father's house, Marcus gave Charlotte a small gift wrapped in tissue paper. "What's this?" "Open it." Inside was a tiny keychain, a hummingbird feather made from leather scraps, carefully stitched and dyed. "From your mother's box?" Marcus explained. "I wanted you to carry a piece of it with you." Charlotte's eyes filled with tears. "It's perfect. Like you." She kissed him there in the diner, in front of Mrs. Alvarez and the other customers, and anyone who wanted to see, because hiding was over, because small, visible ways mattered. "I love you," she said, the first time she'd said it out loud. Marcus smiled. "I love you too." Mrs. Alvarez brought them pie. "On the house," for choosing right. 2 months later, Charlotte drove the teal convertible down Main Street at dusk. Marcus sat beside her, his hand covering hers on the gearshift. Noah was in the back, heading to a college visit in Boston the next morning. They passed Reed Auto. Luis waved from the bay doors. Charlotte honked the horn twice. They passed the diner. Mrs. Alvarez stood outside, sweeping the sidewalk. She smiled and nodded. They passed Graham, walking to his car. He looked at the convertible, at Charlotte and Marcus, and kept walking. No smile, no wave, just acceptance that some things weren't meant to be. The sun set over the water, painting the sky in her mother's favorite colors. Teal and gold and pink. Freedom colors. Charlotte thought about her mother's note. "For the drive I'm going to take? The one where I don't plan anything, where I just go." She was taking that drive now. Not alone, but with someone who made her brave enough to go. "Where to?" Marcus asked. Charlotte smiled. "Anywhere, as long as you're with me." The teal convertible purred down the street, steady and sure. No destination in mind, just the practice of choosing, just the courage of being seen. Just love, made visible in small ways that added up to everything. Fall came to the coastal town in shades of amber and rust. Charlotte woke up on a Thursday morning in October and smiled before she even opened her eyes. Thursday. Their day. 6 months had passed since that first terrible meeting at Reed Auto. 6 months since she'd said words she couldn't take back, and Marcus had shown her grace anyway. 6 months of learning what love looked like when it was built on truth instead of pretense. She got dressed and drove to her father's house for their weekly breakfast. It had become a routine. Thursday mornings with Edward, Thursday evenings with Marcus. Separate spaces for the different parts of her life that were slowly, carefully, coming together. Edward was in the breakfast room, reading the newspaper. He looked up when she entered. "Coffee's fresh," he said. Charlotte poured herself a cup and sat across from him. Through the window, she could see Mr. Keegan raking leaves in the garden. The ocean beyond was gray and restless under October clouds. "The Maritime Museum fundraiser is next month," Edward said. "They're expecting a good turnout. Graham's family pledged $50,000. Charlotte nodded. Graham had been polite at the last charity event they'd both attended. Distant, but polite. He was dating someone new now, a lawyer from Boston. Someone more suitable. "I was thinking of inviting Marcus and Noah," Charlotte said carefully. "To the fundraiser." Edward set down his newspaper. 6 months ago, he would have said no immediately. Now he just looked at her. "Noah's interested in engineering," Charlotte continued. "The museum has that new exhibit on ship design. He'd love it." "And Marcus?" "Marcus goes where Noah goes. You know that." Edward was quiet for a moment, then, "The Whitneys will be there. The Cabots, the old families." "I know. They'll talk. Let them." Charlotte met her father's eyes. "I'm not hiding him, Dad. Not from your friends. Not from anyone." Something that might have been respect flickered across Edward's face. "Your mother would have said the same thing." "Would she?" Yes. She was braver than I gave her credit for. He picked up his newspaper again. Invite them. But tell Noah to wear a suit. The Whitneys are old-fashioned about dress codes. Charlotte's chest loosened. Thank you, Dad. Don't thank me yet. Martha Whitney will probably say something inappropriate. She usually does. But he was smiling slightly when he said it. That afternoon, Charlotte stopped by Reed Auto. The shop had changed in small ways over the months. New equipment in the corner. A fresh coat of paint on the walls. Business was good. Marcus had hired another technician and was considering expanding into the empty space next door. She found him in the office, going over invoices with Noah. College expenses, Marcus explained, trying to figure out what the scholarship won't cover. Noah looked up. Charlotte, tell my brother I can work part-time and take classes. You can, Charlotte said. But you shouldn't have to work 40 hours a week and carry a full course load. See? Marcus gestured at her. She agrees with me. Noah rolled his eyes, but he was smiling. You two ganging up on me isn't fair. Charlotte pulled up a chair. What's the gap? Marcus showed her the numbers. It was manageable, a few thousand per semester. But it was still money Marcus didn't have lying around, not with the shop expansion. I have some savings from my mother's estate, Charlotte said. Let me... No. Marcus's voice was firm. Thank you, but no. Marcus, Noah is my responsibility. We'll figure it out. Charlotte understood. Pride wasn't always a bad thing. Sometimes it was about dignity, about doing things yourself when you could. Okay, she said. But if you change your mind, I know where to find you. Noah gathered his books. I have tutoring at the library. See you at dinner? 7 p.m., Charlotte confirmed. Mrs. Alvarez is making her special tamales. After Noah left, Marcus pulled Charlotte into his arms. She rested her head against his chest and listened to his heartbeat. Steady? Sure. My father invited you to the Maritime Museum fundraiser, she said. Next month. Black tie, very formal, very old money. You don't have to. I want to. I want you there. She looked up at him. But I need you to know what you're walking into. These are my father's friends, his business associates. Some of them are kind, some of them aren't. I can handle myself, Charlotte. I know you can, but that doesn't mean you should have to. Marcus tilted her chin up and kissed her, soft and sweet. I'll be fine, as long as you're with me. Always, she promised. The Maritime Museum fundraiser was everything Charlotte had warned him about. Black tuxedos and evening gowns, champagne and crystal flutes, string quartet music floating over polite conversation about investments and vacation homes and whose children were attending which prestigious schools. Marcus stood beside Charlotte in a rented tux. Noah beside him, looking uncomfortable in his first formal suit. Edward had met them at the entrance and walked in with them. A statement no one could miss. Edward Hale endorsing this relationship with his presence. The Whitneys are by the Maritime Painting exhibit, Edward murmured. Unavoidable, I'm afraid. Martha Whitney was exactly what Charlotte had described. Old money, older opinions, and no filter. Edward, she exclaimed. And Charlotte, darling, you look lovely, and this must be... She looked at Marcus and Noah with undisguised curiosity. Marcus Reed, Edward said smoothly. And his brother Noah. Marcus owns Reed Auto. Noah is heading to MIT next fall on a full engineering scholarship. Martha's eyebrows rose. MIT? How impressive! And your shop? Is that the one on Main Street? My nephew had his car serviced there. Said it was excellent work. Thank you, Marcus said. We try to take care of our customers. Well? Martha looked between Marcus and Charlotte. You make a handsome couple? Very modern? It was a backhanded compliment at best. But Charlotte squeezed Marcus's hand and smiled. "Thank you, Mrs. Whitney. We think so too." They moved through the crowd. Some people were genuinely kind, asked about the shop, congratulated Noah on his scholarship, made real conversation. Others were polite in that cold way that said everything without saying anything. A few simply stared. Marcus handled it all with the same steady grace he brought to everything. He didn't flinch, didn't shrink. Just stood beside Charlotte like he belonged there. Because he did. Halfway through the evening, they found themselves alone by the ship model display. Noah had wandered off to look at the engine schematics with a professor from the local college. "You okay?" Charlotte asked. Marcus looked at her. "You know what I keep thinking about?" "What?" "That first day, when you said what you said, and I said what I said, and how far we've come from there." Charlotte's throat tightened. "I was so wrong." "You were scared. There's a difference." He turned to face her fully. "And you did the hardest thing. You changed. You fought for us. You keep fighting for us." "So do you." "Yeah, I do." Marcus smiled. "Because you're worth it. All of this, is worth it." Edward found them a few minutes later. "The Cabots want to meet Noah. Something about a summer internship program for engineering students." Noah's eyes went wide when Edward explained. An internship with one of the biggest maritime engineering firms on the East Coast. Paid. Prestigious. A foot in the door before he even started college. "How did you—" Marcus started. "I made a phone call," Edward said simply. "Noah has the grades, the scholarship, the drive. He just needed an introduction." Marcus looked at Edward for a long moment. "Thank you, Mr. Hale." "Edward, if my daughter insists on making you part of this family, you might as well call me Edward." It wasn't exactly a warm welcome, but it was more than tolerance. It was acceptance, given in Edward Hale's careful, measured way. Charlotte watched her father and the man she loved shake hands and felt something settle deep in her chest. Peace. Hope. The beginning of something real. November brought the first snow. Charlotte woke up to white covering the ground, soft and clean. She grabbed her phone and texted Marcus. "Did you see?" His response came immediately. "Noah wants to go sledding. Want to come?" They spent the afternoon at the hill behind the high school, acting like children. Noah found an old sled in the Reed Auto Garage. Charlotte hadn't been sledding since she was 12. She and Marcus went down tangled together, laughing, tumbling into the snow at the bottom. Noah took pictures he threatened to show everyone. Later, they drove to Mrs. Alvarez's diner for hot chocolate. The booth in the corner had a small plaque now. Reserved. Reed Hale. Mrs. Alvarez had put it up in September without asking. "You two come here every Thursday," she'd said. "Might as well make it official." They slid into the booth, cold and wet and happy. Mrs. Alvarez brought hot chocolate with extra marshmallows and sat down to chat. "Noah," she said, "I heard about the MIT scholarship. Congratulations." "Thank you, Mrs. Alvarez. Your brother must be proud." "He won't stop telling people," Noah said, but his smile was affectionate. Mrs. Alvarez looked at Marcus and Charlotte. "And you two? Still choosing each other every day?" "Every day," Charlotte confirmed. "Good. That's how you build something that lasts. Not in the big moments, in the small ones, in showing up, in hot chocolate on Thursday nights, in keeping your promises even when it's hard." After she left, Noah excused himself to call a friend. Marcus and Charlotte sat alone in their booth, hands linked on the table. "I have something for you," Marcus said. He pulled out a small wrapped package. Charlotte opened it carefully. Inside was a photograph, the teal convertible at the Overlook, sunset painting the sky behind it. Marcus had written on the back, October 15th, the day we drove your mother's dream. Marcus! Charlotte's voice broke. I want you to remember, he said quietly, that we did it, that we're still doing it, every Thursday, every day, choosing each other, choosing this. Charlotte reached into her purse and pulled out her own gift. I have something for you too. It was a key, simple, silver, attached to a small leather tag with her address embossed on it. I know we've only been together 6 months, Charlotte said, and I know we're taking things slow, but I want you to have this. So you know, you're welcome, always. My home is your home. Marcus stared at the key. Then he looked at her, and she saw everything she needed to see in his eyes. I love you, he said, in case I haven't said it enough today. You can never say it enough. He kissed her there in the diner, in their booth, with the snow falling outside, and Mrs. Alvarez humming in the kitchen, and the whole world moving around them. But in that moment, they were the center of everything. December arrived with plans for the future. Noah got his acceptance to MIT, early admission. The Cabot internship came through. Suddenly, the college expenses didn't seem so impossible. Marcus could breathe again. Charlotte started volunteering at the youth center twice a week, teaching art classes to kids who needed somewhere safe to be after school. It filled something in her that had been empty for too long. Edward invited Marcus and Noah to Christmas dinner at the Hale house. Just family, he said. Small, quiet. Marcus accepted, because that's what they were now, whether Edward fully realized it or not. Family. The week before Christmas, Charlotte drove the teal convertible through town despite the cold. She had the heat on full blast, but she needed to drive it, needed to feel her mother's presence in the leather seats and the purr of the engine. She picked up Marcus at the shop and drove to the overlook. The ocean was dark gray under winter clouds, but it was beautiful in its own harsh way. I've been thinking, Charlotte said, about next year, about what we want. What do we want? I want more Thursdays, more mornings waking up knowing I'll see you that evening, more Sunday drives in this car. She turned to face him. I want us to keep choosing each other, every day, in small ways and big ways. Marcus smiled. That's what I want too. And I want to ask you something. Ask. Charlotte took a breath. Move in with me. Not right now. Noah still needs you around until he leaves for college. But after, next summer. Make my house our house. Make my Thursdays our Thursdays. Make my life our life. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he cupped her face in his hands and kissed her. Yes, he said simply. Yes to all of it. Christmas morning dawned clear and cold. Charlotte woke up in her own bed but drove to the Hale house early to help Mr. Keegan prepare. The house smelled like pine and cinnamon. The tree in the living room was decorated with her mother's favorite ornaments. Marcus and Noah arrived at noon. Noah brought a pie Mrs. Alvarez had made. Marcus brought a small wrapped box he handed to Edward. Edward opened it carefully. Inside was a framed photograph, the teal convertible in the Hale garage, restored and gleaming. I thought you'd want a copy, Marcus said, to remember what she loved. Edward stared at the photograph for a long time. Then he looked at Marcus. Thank you. This means a great deal. Dinner was simple and warm. They ate at the kitchen table instead of the formal dining room. Mr. Keegan joined them. They told stories about Charlotte's mother, about Noah's childhood, about the early days of Reed Auto when Marcus was learning the business from his father. After dinner, Edward pulled Charlotte aside. He's a good man, Edward said quietly. I know. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it. Charlotte hugged her father. You're seeing it now? That's what matters. Thursday evening, 2 weeks into the new year, Charlotte met Marcus at the diner at 6 p.m. sharp. Their booth was waiting. Hot chocolate was already on the table. Mrs. Alvarez knew their order by heart. Marcus looked tired but happy. We got the lease on the space next door. Expansion starts in March. That's wonderful. Yeah, Luis is going to manage the new bay, which means I can actually take a day off once in a while. Revolutionary. Marcus laughed. Then he reached across the table and took her hand. I've been thinking about what you said about moving in this summer. Having second thoughts? No, the opposite. I want to do it right. He paused. I want us to have our own space, not your house or my apartment, our place. Charlotte's heart raced. What are you saying? I'm saying let's find something together. Something that's ours from the start. Something we choose. Together. You want to look for a house? Yeah, I do. Marcus squeezed her hand. Noah leaves for college in August. That gives us 8 months to find the right place, to build something that's just ours. Charlotte felt tears prick her eyes. Yes, let's do that. Mrs. Alvarez appeared with more hot chocolate. You two planning something big? Maybe, Marcus said, smiling. Good, it's about time. She winked. You make a beautiful couple. Been saying so since the beginning. After she left, Charlotte and Marcus sat in comfortable silence, hands linked, watching snow start to fall outside. You know what I realized? Charlotte said. 6 months ago, I was terrified of what people would think, of what my father would say, of losing my place in a family that cared more about appearance than truth. And now? Now I know what matters. Not the fancy dinners or the old names or the perfect picture. Just this, Thursday nights in a diner, Sunday drives in my mom's car. Choosing you every single day and knowing you're choosing me back. Marcus brought her hand to his lips and kissed it. Every single day. They stayed until closing, talking about houses and Noah's college plans and the shop expansion and all the small, ordinary, beautiful pieces of the life they were building together. When they finally left, the snow had stopped. The streets were quiet and white. Charlotte drove Marcus home in the teal convertible. Impractical for winter, but neither of them cared. At his apartment, Marcus kissed her goodbye, long and sweet and full of promise. See you tomorrow? He asked. You're teaching me that carburetor rebuild, remember? Right, 4 p.m. I'll be there. Charlotte drove home through the quiet streets, past the shop and the diner and all the places that had become theirs over the past months. The teal convertible hummed beneath her, steady and sure. She thought about her mother, about the drive she'd planned but never taken, about dreams deferred and time that ran out too quickly. But Charlotte wasn't deferring anything anymore. She was living, choosing, building a life in small, visible, daily ways that added up to everything. When she got home, she sat in the driveway for a minute, just breathing, just being grateful. Then she texted Marcus, I love you. His response came immediately. I love you too. See you tomorrow, and the day after that, and all the days that followed, not in grand gestures or perfect moments, just in the steady practice of showing up, of keeping promises, of choosing love over fear, truth over appearance, courage over comfort. Just the practice of choosing, every day, in small, visible ways. Charlotte locked the car and walked inside, smiling at the life she'd built, the life she was still building, the life that was finally, completely, beautifully hers. 6 months later, the house sat on a hill overlooking the water, not as grand as the Hale estate, but perfect in its own way. 3 bedrooms, a garage for the teal convertible, a front porch where Charlotte could sit in the mornings with coffee and watch the sun rise over the ocean. Marcus and Charlotte signed the papers on a Thursday afternoon in July. Their realtor congratulated them and handed over the keys. "Welcome home," she said. They stood in the empty living room, boxes stacked against the walls, and just looked at each other. "We did it," Charlotte whispered. "We did it," Marcus confirmed. That evening, they had a small gathering. Edward came, bringing champagne and Mr. Keegan. Noah brought pizza and his girlfriend from MIT's summer program. Mrs. Alvarez brought tamales and blessed the house in Spanish. Tessa brought flowers and tears of joy. Luis brought the rest of the Reed auto crew. They sat on the floor eating pizza and drinking champagne from mismatched cups and planning where furniture should go. Edward pulled Charlotte aside at one point. "Your mother would have loved this house." "You think so?" "I know so. She always wanted something by the water, something simple and real." He looked at Marcus, who was helping Noah carry boxes up the stairs. "She would have loved him too. He's good for you, Charlotte. He makes you brave." "He makes me myself," Charlotte said. "That's what matters." Later, after everyone left, Marcus and Charlotte stood on the porch watching the sun set. The sky painted itself in her mother's colors, teal and gold and pink. "Happy?" Marcus asked. Charlotte leaned against him. "So happy I'm afraid to blink." "Don't blink then. I have to eventually. Then I'll remember for both of us. This moment, this house, this life we're building." Charlotte turned to face him. "You know what the best part is?" "What?" "We still have so many Thursdays ahead of us, so many Sunday drives, so many small, ordinary days to keep choosing each other." Marcus kissed her as the sun dipped below the horizon. "Then let's not waste a single one." The teal convertible sat in the garage, ready for the next adventure. The house waited for them to fill it with love and laughter and all the messy, beautiful pieces of a life lived honestly. And tomorrow there would be another Thursday, another chance to show up, to keep promises, to choose love in small, visible ways that added up to everything. But tonight, Charlotte and Marcus stood on their porch, hands intertwined, and simply existed in the space they'd created. Together. Finally home. Not because of grand gestures or perfect moments, but because they'd chosen each other. Every day, in small ways and big ways. And they would keep choosing. Tomorrow and all the tomorrows after that. That was enough. That was everything. The end.